Hey everyone, welcome back to the Makers Gonna Learn YouTube channel. My name is Alicia, and today I'm gonna be talking about something that everybody has been so vocal about and so excited to see here on the channel, and that is puff vinyl. So this isn't like your normal heat transfer vinyl. This is the 3D puff vinyl that looks so cool whenever you apply heat to it and then pull that carrier sheet off. It gives that really neat three-dimensional effect. And I'm gonna show you all the different brands that we tried and the different heat settings as well as cut settings that worked for us. So you can see here, we use the Siser brand 3D Puff HTV on this sweatshirt. This is in a fluorescent yellow, which we really love. It's super loud and super fun. And also it's 3D, so that just makes it that much better. And then I want to see if you all can get a good look at this three-dimensional effect. And so normally with regular HTV, it's going to be very flat, but with the 3D puff, you get this raised effect, and it just adds another special element to all of your craft projects. And so whenever we started looking into puff vinyl, we thought there's got to be different brands and different types that we need to try out. That way we can decide which ones we like better. And so come to find out, there are lots of different brands, but we chose our top 3 that we typically use for regular HTV and adhesive vinyl. And those are the Teckwrap Craft, the Siser brand, and the Starcraft brand. And so I'm gonna show you all exactly what we found out, what we discovered, and I'm also gonna be cutting out some of these for you all and then pressing them, and that way you can see the differences in that way as well. Okay, so I've got the 3 different brands here. I've got my Teckwrap Craft brand. We got this in white. I have some Siser brand puff vinyl. And then I also got the Starcraft brand. And so these all feel different. The carrier sheets are even different. Cut settings and heat settings, all different. But we're gonna go through each and every one of those so you all can kind of decide on your own which one is gonna work best for you before you go into purchasing. Another thing you're gonna need is a strong grip mat. This is a well-loved strong grip mat, but it's still pretty sticky. If you don't have a strong grip mat, but you do have your puff vinyl already, do not fret. You can always use a standard grip mat and then just use masking tape to make sure that it's stuck down really well. You just do not want your vinyl moving around when we go to cut it. So make sure that you have it securely set onto your mat. And then I've just got like a plethora of different weeding tools. I have a true control knife, some scissors. This is a pin weeding tool for fine cuts, and then just a standard weeding tool. So other than your Cricut, the last element that you're gonna need is a heat source. So we have been using the clamshell heat press for all of our puff vinyl needs. You can use a bigger Cricut Easy Press if you wanted to, and if that's all you had on hand. I would recommend testing out small sections of puff vinyl onto like a scrap piece of cloth or something like that before you go and do a huge design on a really nice t-shirt, because you do need to apply a very specific amount of pressure. And so that's why we really like to use this big heat press, because we can adjust the settings as needed and we can apply more pressure if we need to as well. I do not recommend using a Cricut Mini Easy Press or using an iron that may put out steam or anything like that. A heat press or even the bigger Cricut Easy Presses are gonna be your best bet. Let's go ahead and get into Design Space. And I've already laid out these simple designs today. We're not gonna spend a whole lot of time in Design Space, but I do wanna go over the cut settings for each of these vinyls because they do vary from brand to brand. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so I have pulled in the design elements for the 3 different shirts that we're gonna be making today, and then we will just work our way up from there. So I'm gonna start with the Teckwrap Puff HTV. So you can just hide any of this stuff in the layers panel that we do not need. We'll go ahead and hide that. Okay, and then we will just go to make it. Now, when you get to this page, you're gonna need to mirror your image when you're using the Teckwrap vinyl. So I'm just going to select mirror right here, and you can see that it's flipped my image to the opposite direction. Select continue, And then depending on the machine that you're using, you will use different cut settings. And this is per the Teckwrap reference guide that they send me whenever they sent the actual Teckwrap puff vinyl. And I'll show you guys that right now. So this is the label that came on our puff vinyl sheet. You can see it's actually torn up a little bit, but that's totally fine because I can still read all of the information on the back. So here it has your HTV type, the machine you're using, as well as heat settings. And then it tells us how much pressure we need to apply depending on the HTV type that we're using. And so what we're doing today is we're using the Explorer series, and it's telling us that we need to use the everyday iron-on cut setting at a pressure of 160. If you're using a maker, you're going to use the premium vinyl holographic setting with a pressure of 185. I plan to put a reference guide together for you all. That way, if you do get really into puff vinyl making, you're going to have something to refer back to whenever you go to actually make it. So back in Design Space, we're going to be going to the everyday iron-on cut setting in order to cut this vinyl. But according to our reference sheet, we need to be cutting it with a pressure of 160. Now, how do we know if our everyday iron-on is cutting at a pressure of 160? Well, I'm going to show you. We're going to go to Browse All Materials and then to Material Settings on the bottom left. What you can do is scroll down here, and this is in alphabetical order, and you can find everyday iron-on right here. Now, the pressure setting is at 113, so that's not nearly as much as we need. So what I suggest that you do is keep on scrolling all the way to the bottom of these material settings, and we're going to make our own. So I'm going to add new material, and let's name this Teckwrap Puff Vinyl, okay? And so this setting is going to be in here forever, so you can refer back to it whenever you're cutting your Teckwrap Puff Vinyl. And you select Save, and then you can select manually how much pressure that you need. And so we need it to be at 160 or around that. And then you can see there's also options to do more passes, which we don't need. And you can also change the blade, which we're keeping it on a fine point blade, so that's not going to affect us at all either. And then select Save. After that, you can select Done. And then, so you can't see it right here in our favorites, but we can go back to Browse All Materials and type in Tech. And you can see our cut setting is right here. So this is going to be super handy for you if you continuously use this type of puff vinyl. So select Done. And then all we're going to need to do is apply our HTV to our Strong Grip mat. So I've got my Teckwrap vinyl here, and you can see there's an obvious shiny side and an obvious matte side. Now with Teckwrap, we're applying it as the same as we would any other heat transfer vinyl, and that is shiny side down. So our carrier sheet is the shiny side. So with puff vinyl, you're always going to put the carrier sheet face down. And so we're going to turn this over so that the carrier sheet is facing the sticky side of our mat. Just line it up as good as you can. And then you want to burnish this down and make sure it does not move. Now, if you're using a standard grip mat or a little bit less sticky of a strong grip mat, you're going to want to add some painter's tape or masking tape around the edges to make sure that it's not moving when it goes to cut. And then you should be good to go ahead and send this through the cutter. And so this is the finished product. So you're just weeding everything around your design, and then you're left with the design here. And you can see the carrier sheet is still holding our design in place. Now with the Teckwrap, the carrier sheet is sticky, and typically with HTV, you will find that the carrier sheet is sticky. Now the Starcraft carrier sheet, not sticky. So you'll see differences with puff vinyl, and it's just going to be differences between the brands and what they chose to do. Okay, for this one, we are going to be cutting the light bulb out of the Starcraft HTV 3D puff. This one is a little bit trickier, and I'll show you why. So we can go ahead and go to the Make It screen. I'm going to hide anything we don't need. But before we go to cut it, I want to show you something that's a little bit different about the Starcraft HTV. So I've peeled up a corner here so that you all can really get a good visual, because with the Starcraft Puff HTV, you're going to get a matte side and another semi-matte side. And so normally you're going to hear us saying, put the shiny side down, put the shiny side towards the matte. Well, this case is going to be a little bit different. So the carrier sheet is this more matte side, and I know that because I've slightly separated the vinyl from the carrier sheet, and that's a good way to tell which side is the carrier sheet and which side isn't, especially when you're working with puff vinyl. And so I know that the carrier sheet needs to be sticking towards the sticky side of my mat, which means this more matte side is gonna go down towards my mat whenever I go to cut it. And so you would just line it up like this, and let me grab a piece of scrap that I've already cut. And so you can see the more matte side is gonna go face down, okay? And I'm just gonna line this up in the corner just like we normally would. And then back in Design Space, I'm going to be mirroring my image here again because we've flipped the carrier sheet down. So our image is being cut in reverse, just like we normally would with HTV. And then we will select Continue. On the 143 Vinyl website, it advises us to cut Starcraft Puff HTV under the Everyday Iron-On cut settings. It does not specify pressure. It doesn't specify anything else other than Everyday Iron-On. So I'm just going to cut it on the normal Everyday Iron-On cut setting, keep it at default pressure, and we're going to go ahead and send this to the machine. Okay, so already with this one, it feels so much different after I've weeded out my design. So this is the matte carrier sheet. This is not sticky, you all. So on the other one, on this one, we had a sticky clear carrier sheet. This one is not sticky, and it's a little bit more frosted. And so you can tell a big difference here. I personally like the sticky one because I can put this on my shirt and I know it's not gonna move around. That's just personal preference. Okay, we are to the first one that we ever tried and probably the most tricky one. But I just want you all to simply follow the instructions and you will be good to go. So this is the Siser Easy Puff HTV, and we're going to be cutting this MGO logo out of some brown puff HTV. Now let's go to the Make It screen, and we are going to select the cut settings we're going to be using for this vinyl. Now you need to mirror your image just like we've done for the other two. Go ahead and mirror that. Select Continue. And we are also going to be using the Everyday Iron-On. Now, so according to Siser, you are to cut this on the Everyday Iron-On cut setting. So I'm going to just select that here. We're going to keep it at default pressure. And now let me go overhead and show you all exactly how to lay out this vinyl. So you've heard me preach shiny side down over and over and over again. If you've been on the channel for any extended amount of time, you've heard me say that. But with puff vinyl, I want you to think carrier sheet side down. Now with the Siser Puff HTV, the carrier sheet is actually the matte side. So I'm going to show you all by peeling up a corner of this. Sometimes if I cut a little corner off, it's easy for me to grab. Okay, so I want you all to see here that the Siser Puff carrier sheet is the matte side in this case, okay? So that means that this matte side needs to touch my sticky side of my mat because this is the carrier sheet. So the carrier sheet's always gonna go down when you're using puff vinyl. And so I'm cutting a pretty large image here. So I'm gonna use this entire sheet. I'm just going to line it up to that top edge. And then we can go ahead and feed this into the Cricut. Now before I remove my puff vinyl, I always like to make sure that it cut all the way through. So you can take a weeding tool and just kind of make sure a portion of it is cut all the way through, and it has. So I'm just gonna go ahead and unload this and then weed it. Okay, so our design is weeded. This carrier sheet is very matte, similar to the Starcraft, but it's also sticky like the Teckwrap. So we kind of get the best of both worlds there, I guess. It's just funny how they're all so different, but it's basically the same exact type of vinyl. So anyways, this is our design, and the next thing we want to talk about is heat settings. Okay, so I have paired up all of our designs with the different t-shirts or sweatshirts that they're going to be going on. I want to talk about what heat settings and what length of time you're going to need for each one of these puff vinyls. And so we're just going to go back in order. So we started with our Teckwrap, so I'm going to start there for the heat settings. This is going to need to be pressed at 275 for around 8 to 10 seconds. And so I've got my heat press already preheated. And so all we're going to need to do is lay out our design exactly where we want it on our shirt. So this is just a pocket tee, so I'll just line it up on the chest of this shirt, and it is sticky, so it's not going to move a lot once you get it down. You can pull it up and move it if you need to. And then what we're going to do is put this into our heat press. Now, a lot of people ask, do we need different types of butcher's paper or like a Teflon sheet or something like that? I have not used one yet, and everything has worked out perfectly fine. We have the carrier sheet as a barrier, so we are going to be good to go. So I'm going to press this with firm pressure for 10 seconds. Okay. Now, online, it told us to do a cool peel, but this peels off very easily, and it does not affect it at all. I've tried cool peel, warm peel. If you want to follow the instructions, you can wait and do a cool peel, but the warm peel worked out perfectly fine for us, and I'm going to show you all close up what this looks like. So this is the Teckwrap Puff HTV. It looks so good, and I love the texture that this puff vinyl gives. Just worked out really nicely for us. So this is the Starcraft. We're going to be cutting this with the more matte side. And I'm just going to be doing another chest logo right here. Now this is not sticky, so it will try to move. You can apply some heat resistant tape around the edges of this, which I'm going to do really quick. And this is going to prevent it from moving around whenever it goes into the press. So these are things that you're going to need to think about whenever you're purchasing different puff vinyls. Like, do I want to have to take my design down every time that I go to press it? Would I rather it just be on a sticky carrier sheet? That's just something you're going to have to consider. Okay, another thing about the Starcraft heat settings are that we're going to be pressing it 2 times. So the first one, we're going to be doing it at 285 for 8 to 10 seconds. I'm going to do it for 10. We're going to remove the carrier sheet and press it again, just bare bones for 4 to 6 seconds. It sounds crazy, but it works, trust me. So let's go ahead and plop this in here. We're gonna do 10 seconds for the first one. Okay, we're gonna remove the carrier sheet. Before removing the carrier sheet, you're gonna need to let this cool down completely. And so delicately remove this, and honestly, y'all, it looks really nice right now. It's very smooth. It feels different than normal HTV, but it does not quite feel like puff HTV at this point. Let me give you a close-up. This is before the second press. So it's very smooth. It's not textured like the Teckwrap was. Very smooth. It actually looks pretty nice. But if you want that 3D puff effect, we're gonna need to press it a second time. So this part scared me the first time I did it. I thought, no, thank you. I'm not going to do that. But I did a little tester corner and it worked out perfectly fine. So we're just going in bare bones. I've got my t-shirt and it's going to be sandwiched in between the plates at firm pressure for 6 seconds. And this does not leave any residue on your plates or anything that I've noticed, but it looks very, very nice. So this is the 3D Puff Starcraft final product. So there are some pretty obvious differences when I first look at it. The Starcraft has a much different texture, and it's also kind of like it's bled the design together. So there's not as much gap in between like the cut lines where the scissors touch. I'm gonna personally say I like the Teckwrap results better than the Starcraft, but like I've been saying, it's all gonna be personal preference. And the more you work with certain types of vinyl, the better you're gonna get at it as well. But they both look pretty dang good. Okay, and last but not least is our Siser. This is our favorite brand of HTV, and so this was the very first brand that we used when we were making the puff vinyl. And I really like this because it has the sticky transfer carrier sheet and it just looks really nice. So for this sweater, so I'm gonna use one of the Maker's Gonna Learn t-shirt guides for this one. And when I get full designs like this, I like to crease them about halfway and then line it up with the middle of my t-shirt guide. If you don't have a t-shirt guide, you can do 3 finger widths from the collar to wherever your design is going to be. That's how much space you need in between it. Then we can remove the t-shirt guide. And so the heat settings for the Siser are going to be actually at 280 for a little bit more time. So I'm going to go over to my heat press and we're going to bump this up to 280. And then as soon as that gets a little bit hotter, we will press our design in the heat press. If you look on the 143 Vinyl website, which is where I purchased this Siser brand vinyl, it's gonna recommend that you press it for 8 to 10 seconds. I found that the 15-second works a little bit better. And so I've been doing it for 15 seconds. But if you wanna try it yourself, 8 to 10 seconds at 280 is the recommended time and heat settings. So I'm just gonna place this in here and we're gonna press this for 15 seconds. And this is a hot peel, so as soon as I lift it up, I'm gonna pull that carrier sheet off. You can see it kind of pops off whenever you lift the clamshell up. But y'all, this looks so good. And I just wanna shout out to Amy Makes That because she did a brown on brown puff vinyl. And it was like the most gorgeous thing ever. And I was like, we have to make a brown on brown because the brown on brown looks so pretty. Let's go overhead so you can see really good how this looks. So this is final product. How cute. I love this. And I really love how the puff vinyl feels. The Teckwrap and the Siser are my top contenders just because I feel like they look really good. The Starcraft does not look terrible. It really doesn't, but I don't like the fact that I have to press it twice in order to get the achieved look. That's just me. But overall, I am hooked onto puff vinyl. I just think it looks so cool, super trendy right now, and also a really great seller. If you are a craft seller, puff vinyl is super hot right now. It's all over Etsy, Instagram, all of the above. So if you're interested, make sure to grab it in the links below. We will have all of the stuff that we used today linked for you all so that you can use it if you need to. So for typical wash settings for these, we get lots of questions whenever we make things on textiles like shirts especially. Always, always wash your stuff inside out. If you've got puff vinyl or HTV or anything like that, these are gonna be washed inside out on cold, gentle cycle, and you're gonna tumble dry them on low. I don't typically like to tumble dry mine on low. I like to hang dry anything that I have applied vinyl to. Personal preference. I just don't want any heat getting on to the vinyl, but the instructions say that you can tumble dry these low in your dryer, so you should be good to go if that's the way that you choose to do it. If you all like today's video, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss when we post new crafty videos for you all, and hit the little bell so you're notified every time that we post. We cannot wait to see you all in the next one, and thank you for hanging out with us today. Bye.